Hello everyone, it's Miriam. In this video, I'm going to talk about sun sign versus rising sign. So I've been studying astrology for a couple of decades now, and I still find this a very interesting question to ponder. Obviously, if you're new to astrology and you have previously only heard about the sun sign, most likely under the term star sign, and you haven't had a clue what the rising sign or ascendant means, then this is even more of a intriguing question, I suppose. So I want to shed some light on this. So first of all, I believe, because there's still some discussion around this, even amongst in the community, what they mean respectively, and if they are like equally important, and like in which way do they interact or correlate, because some people say that they feel the influence of their sun sign much stronger than the rising, and some people say like it has to do with like age. When you are younger, you tend to identify more with your moon sign and rising sign, which I personally found was true for my life. And it took me some time to really grow into my sun sign, to really become the Aries, because the sun sign is a symbol of our core being. I always call it the director in the chart, and it shows us traits about a person that they identify with on a really fundamental level. Okay, so for example, as just take my own sign. It's always so much easier. So okay, so as an Aries, so when I hear like, especially when I hear people talk about, tell about their stories and what they experience in life, so whatever this may be about, but I always feel like when there is something being mentioned, that I really feel this touches something within me, and I feel a strong sense of like resonance. Then I know this is truly like, I might feel like, oh, I would have done the same. I see the situation, I would judge the situation exactly the same way, because that is totally me. Or what this person was going through, experiencing, or the way they reacted, that is like totally me. That's something I would totally identify with. So obviously, as an Aries, that would have to do with showing courage, like being a pioneer, being willing to take the first step, and also being very, very independent, and really not liking anybody else trying to be the boss in your life. So it's a masculine sign, and it's a fire sign. So this is really a no nonsense um, energy in terms of being independent, and just taking charge of your life, and really wanting to make your own choices. Okay, so that would be then the sun's quality, what you truly identify with. And the rising sign, on the other hand, it depicts the approach to life. It depicts how you approach new situations, how you intuitively react when you're being presented like with a new challenge, or when you meet someone, or you come into a situation that you're not prepared. And we all have our very individual ways of reacting to new things, and approaching things, and placing, putting emphasis on certain things. There's people with a very practical approach, people with a very logical approach, people with a very impulsive approach, and they would just react very impulsively or spontaneously, and not be bothered about any consequences. Whereas other people, they would be much more concerned about the practical aspects of a situation, or like, how something is actually feasible or not. And so this is then being determined by the rising sign. This is like the individual approach to life. And also I like to call it like the title of your book, or like the title of your story, your individual story. I think this is something I also learned from my very first astrology teacher. I still remember her saying this. This is like the title of the book. So obviously the title tells you what you can expect to read in the book, right? So like content wise. So, and then the content, everything else is then the content, but the title kind of gives you an idea what this is all about. So we can take my example again. So I'm a Virgo rising, right? Virgo is a very, very different energy from Aries. It's totally different. These two signs are in a quincunx aspect, which is a 150-degree aspect. And it means that these energies, these planetary cosmic qualities, principles, they really don't have anything in common. So they are different. Like this is earth and fire, and it's feminine and masculine. One is mutable, one is cardinal. So it's very different energies, and it's not easy, because they do have to have a relationship, because, as I said before, the sun always acts on behalf of the ascendant. So the sun has to kind of implement that title of your book, of your story, yeah, if you want to call that. I think that's a quite helpful image to understand how these two like work together. So we see the sun as a director in our chart. So the sun is always in charge, and it's, as a director, the director's job is to tell all the other actors on the various stages when it is their time to show up, and you know what they should do and what they should say. But the sun also has to act on behalf of the ascendant. So if the ascendant says this is our general approach, then you have to try, or you automatically kind of, this is how it works, it's just how it works. It's like your inner connections, it's just like how you're wired, you know, how you're wired individually. So we all have these super individual connections between sun and rising, and then where the planet that rules your rising sign, where that is, and what other planets it connects with, and so forth and so forth. So but these two specifically, the sun and the rising sign, they have a very strong relationship, and they need to try to find a way and work together. So if the Virgo rising is a very practical earth sign, and it's much more reserved than Aries, it's totally not impulsive, totally doesn't have a temper. It tends to be very calm and composed, and very, you know, more neutral, very analytical. So and I do feel all these qualities. I do have I'm definitely a total like analyst. But then again, I'm not a Virgo. I am an Aries. I feel like an Aries, but I kind of come across, I act as a Virgo. This is like my facade. This is my personal, like my toolkit, the way I present myself. So rising sign always shows how a person presents themselves, like in terms of appearance and style, like the whole physical thing, like, because the ascendant, the first house of the chart, is also like a summary of the first quadrant, which is the houses number 1, 2, and 3. And it's like the summary of all of that, like the first impression that you make on people, like when you enter a room, for example. So the way you start, the way you hold yourself, and your gestures, and facial expressions and all of that, and the way you talk. So that is a super important part of the chart. And I would definitely, like, if you've asked me, like, which do you think of the two is like the more important, I would say most likely the rising sign is more individual, because like the individual degree of your rising sign, that is a super highly individual like interface with your environment. How it depicts the moment of your birth, the very moment of your birth, and it shows how you individually interact with your outside world, with the people around you, with your environment. So I would say this is the more individual one of the two, but I would definitely give the sun equal importance, because it is our core being. And if we have a good approach to our sun, if we know our sun, which means if we know ourselves, and we don't reject these fundamental parts of ourselves, as I said, the thing that we really identify with on a very fundamental level, where we say, like, this is me, this is really totally me, because the sun is an expression of the self, and it shows our behavior. So it's a bit like, you could say, like the ascendant or the rising sign is a bit of a, maybe not a fake, but it's not exactly what it's like the type, but it's not exactly what is inside. Okay, so it sounds like a bit of a complicated relationship, but if you study astrology for a while, and you see like several examples, and you learn about the various qualities and characteristics of all the signs and all the principles, then it becomes easier to kind of connect the two. So I would definitely say they're equally important. I don't think one of the two is less important. I always give both of them equal importance. And of course, all the other factors in the chart, you know, there's the big three. This is sun, the rising, and it also includes the moon. Super important, the moon, our emotional world. But definitely would say that they both have strong significance. And if you have a strong core identity, if you really know who you are and you can express this, this will also help the ascendant, you know, like to shine, because it will give it a much better like expression on the highest possible level, so you get the most out of it. And also, of course, you have to understand your sun sign and your rising sign equally. They're both parts of you. They're just different kind of, in different, they're activated in different areas. So just give you one more example. Like as a Virgo, as I said, it's an earth sign, and earth signs, they're like practical, and they're like a sensible approach to life, and they like to analyze a situation, and you check all the details and the factors first. And maybe, in the sense of in the case of Taurus and Virgo, well, all of them, but most likely Taurus and Virgo especially, they would also want to ask, like, and how much will they cost, and what do we calculate. So that is something that you need to take into account. Whereas, if there's a pure Aries energy, or like maybe an Aries rising or ascendant, will be like, oh wow, yeah, great, and already be gone before even considering what, who, when, where, why. So this is very, very, very different. So I still have to I have to comply with, I have to implement the Virgo theme. So I am, well, the way I would definitely describe myself, I've got the passion of an Aries and identify with that passion. I don't identify with the Virgo qualities, but they are a tool. They help me to express the qualities of my sun. So I would definitely call myself a passionate analyst, okay, or maybe an analytical pioneer, or like I would just kind of combine the two. So in that sense, I give them equal importance. It's just it's different level. They have different functions. They have different functions, and that takes a while to really understand and kind of find your own system, how you work with them and how you interpret them and how you see them working together and combining. I think that takes some time, and it was confusing for me as well in the beginning. And I said, how does this work, and what is like more important, or what is who's who, who's who here. But you do understand if you work with it more and more, and you see, especially when you look at practical examples, then you see how they could possibly work together, because there's so many different combinations. 12 signs, 12 different risings, 12 different sun signs, so there's lots of combinations there. So yeah, if you have different ideas, or maybe you want to tell me about your experiences so far, or maybe you would give one or the other more importance, please, if you want to make a comment, I'll be very interested to read your views on this interesting topic, sun sign versus rising sign. And thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.